Okay, so thank Chingang for the introduction, and thank you, Prof. Chow, and also Trial Group giving me this opportunity. Today, the topic I will speak is the survival and cost effectiveness and impact of positive clinical trial in the management of a HCC in Asia. From the data, the HCC registry in Asia, and also real world data. And also this project was received from the grant from the ACP program. And especially as I have the statistical result available from the HCC registry study today, so I can present some of the data. For the agenda, so I will cover these 4 points. And before the main topic, let me briefly explain about HCC. The HCC is the most common type of primary liver cancer, and it occurs most often in people with chronic liver disease, such as cirrhosis caused by hepatitis B or hepatitis C infection. And also HCC is one of major malignant disease worldwide, characterized by unstrainedly the growing incidence, a low resectability rate, a high recurrence rate after curative intent procedure, limited response to the medical treatment, and finally a grave outcome. So you can see here, HCC has more than 1 million new cases a year. 80% is located in Asian JPEG. This is due to high prevalence chronic the viral hepatitis B in our part of the world. And the HCC has a few efficacious systemic therapies and poor overall survival, and 20 to 30% of patients are diagnosed at an early stage and benefit from the potentially curative therapy, which are the resection, transplantation, and RFA. And it has a limited neoadjuvant or adjuvant therapies for surgical candidates. And recurrences are quite common, and median survival after surgery in HCC is far shorter than after surgery for other common cancers. In most centers worldwide, the treatment allocation is based on the BCLC staging system. This slide shows the HCC management in 2010. As you could see, the therapeutic decision making seems quite simple. For example, using sorafenib for advanced stage C type only as a systemic treatment. However, after lenvatinib, the REFLECT study published on 9th of February 2018, which aimed to compare overall survival in patients treated with lenvatinib versus sorafenib as a first-line treatment for unresectable HCC, and eventually it showed the clinically and statistically significant for non-inferiority to sorafenib in overall survival untreated advanced HCC. Then after, as Dr. Jai mentioned, that I'm Brave 150 studies, atezolizumab plus bevacizumab showed the superiority to sorafenib for the first time in 2020. So therefore, more complex and various the treatment options are available at this moment with more questions. And those newly approved systemic therapies receive critiques that further studies would be needed to better understand real-world practices. So the AHCC08 HCC registry in Asia, which was reported to a clinical.gov, provide a current real-world treatment pattern and patient characteristic and outcome in HCC patient in 9 Asia Pacific countries. It also initiated a trial with a multi-center and longitudinal cohort study from 9 countries. And actual sample size was 2,533, and DB log completed on the 30th of June 2020. And the registration period was starting from the 1st of January 2017 to 30th June 2020. And we have to first understand why we need this study based on the real world data. In general, the product registration process requires a strict controlled environment, keeping clear inclusion-exclusion criteria. And from the pharma company side, keeping minimum sample size for expected endpoint would be considered in terms of the budget and timeline and unexpected results. Thus, RCT randomized control trial, which is still golden standard for the new drug application, keeping internal validity. And past 3 years, lenvatinib and atezo plus veva obtained the first-line therapy for the advanced HCC, along with sorafenib from the phase 3 clinical trial. However, in Asia, even if taking 80% of the HCC cases, there's still lack of multinational real-world data for HCC covering Asia and JPEG. So having the generalizability and external validity from the real-world data is essential to aid decision made on the development of effect, public health strategies, and to inform the development of therapeutics. So in these studies, enrolled patients are treated and managed and follow up according to local clinical practice, and PRO for work productivity and activity impairment questionnaire, and FACT-HEP and EQ 5D3 are collected using questionnaire during routine visits. As you introduced by Prof. Chow, that times it was smaller than now, but anyhow, so as you explained earlier, total 9 countries, China, Thailand, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia, South Korea, and Japan contributed to the study, recruiting over 2,500 patients from 33 sites with a database log on 30th of June 2020. For defining my research topic, I did a literature review for this HCC, especially focusing on the therapeutic decision-making and survival in APEC region for 9 countries, aligning with the HCC registry. With the search term defined here, I've checked the over 4,000 papers based on the clinical and survival outcome in the registry and observational setting. And I found that there were lack of evidence for the HCC treatment pattern and survival with multinational registry or real-world evidence setting in APEC. Thus, I found that it would be interesting to describe these therapeutic decision-making and survival for 9 countries in Asia and JPEG. And after reading the title and papers for HCC treatment pattern and survival, I further look into the cost effectiveness of the treatment pattern of a HCC. So they are far lesser than the previous the search. So I've checked over 182 papers based on the cost effectiveness outcome in the registry and observational setting. And after reading title and article and aligning with interest, analyzing information about the resources used and cost incurred for treatment, and showing variation in cost between countries, I found there would be a value for this topic in Asian JPEG as well. Thus, I thought that the first aim, I should focus on more on the treatment pattern and survival in HCCs of each country to see the therapeutic decision-making per stage. With aim 1, I assume I can smoothly connect aim 2 for cost effectiveness. I set up 3 aims based on the literature review and registry data. So aim 1, the therapeutic decision-making and survival in HCC, using HCC registry in Asia to compare the treatment and survival among 9 countries using the registry data. For the aim 2 is cost effectiveness for the subset of 4 countries, which cost data available, China, Japan, Singapore, and South Korea. Analyze information about the resources used and cost incurred for treatment, and showing the variation in cost between countries. These will be correlated with the survival information expressed and the quality adjusted life year achieved, and describing the crude cost and health outcome arising from services provided in 4 countries. And to that, I'm considering to use Markov modeling. State-based model will be applied to model the cost effectiveness of the treatment provided in selected countries. And aim 3 is to explore the impact of positive clinical trial. The registry studies, the collected data and the database logged was done 30th of June 2020. And during that time, there are quite interesting clinical trial, the data available, especially I'm Brave, atezolizumab plus bevacizumab, and also reflect study regarding lenvatinib, which was approved earlier than 2020, and also Himalaya, which is ongoing, but interim data is now available with prospective data sources in Singapore. So it is this research is appropriately connected in sequence. So aim 1 is how to see 9 countries treatment pattern and survival stratified the first line therapy and stage. And aim 2, the narrowing down into the subset country, 4 countries. I can see the cost effectiveness from 4 countries. And the aim 3 is follow-up data in one country, especially using prospective National Cancer Center in Singapore data, looking at the impact from positive trial I mentioned before for some changes in the practices for survival and cost effectiveness after the database lock of the registry studies. So it is to show the real clinical sciences based on what has changed and what has the impact of the cost effectiveness. Was that less cost effectiveness or more cost effectiveness in Singapore for 3 years between the database lock until the 29th of June 2023. So from this point, let me also share some more detail for the results related to AIM-1, therapeutic decision making and survival in HCC. It is the data from HCC registry in Asia. So patient demography for AIM-1 shows that a total 2,115 male versus 218 female, informing that HCC is highly male dominant. In terms of first-line treatment for the BCLC 0 and A stage, liver resection and RFA and TACE are the preferred first-line HCC treatment for BCLC 0 and A patient. And also the data shows that TACE and RFA were the second most common approach. For BCLC-B stage, the liver resection remains the preferred first-line treatment in China and Taiwan especially, and Japan as well, and TACE and RFA and TAE as the next treatment. In Singapore, especially data shows that TARE called certain Y90 was high with 45%. Regarding BCLC-B stage, it's a BCLC-C stage, liver resection remained highly in China and Japan. From here, systemic therapies are widely used in Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong. And note that the common combination with a liver resection plus TACE and TACE plus TAI and TACE plus systemic therapy was applied. And supportive care is provided to a certain proportion of patients in China and Japan. And for the second most approach, supportive care is shown from Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Last, BCLC-D, the majority of patients received palliative the care, and liver resection was applied to a few patients in China and Japan. And my research is currently ongoing and require additional multidisciplinary approaches and reviews. Nevertheless, some observations from these registries demographics are the radiological images by CT or MRI is used as the most common modality of diagnosis. And patients are often diagnosed at BCLC-A or BCLC-B in most countries. And as explained at the introduction, the results show the correlation between HCC development and hepatitis B. And in all countries, more than 50% of HCC have a viral etiology. In terms of the treatment pattern, the data shows that there are considerable variations in treatment modality adopted across countries. And the most common first-line treatments across the different stages are the liver resection and TACE and RFA for BCLC 0 and A, and liver resection, TACE, and TAE RFA radiation therapy, especially in Singapore for BCLC-B, and systemic therapy and supportive care for C, and D for supportive care. In terms of these modality variations, the cost effectiveness studies, which is planned for a subset of 4 countries, may explain and support the different perspectives. The management of HCC is highly dynamic, and many patients go on to receive a second, even third therapy following tumor progression and regression. On average, 35.6% who receive second line at BCLC 0 and A, and 44.4% received at BCLC-B, and BCLC-C for 23.3% as a second line. So that's all from my side for the presentation today, and I hope you have enjoyed my topic. And lastly, I deeply appreciate again the HCC 08 steering committee and IQVIA and SCRI and Yuki and Yogesh sharing this valuable data analysis and input for the presentation. Thank you.